Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and it's been a while since we last checked out what Tasting History with Max Miller was up to. Now on this channel there are a lot of historically accurate and related recipes, and of course he covers all sorts of different eras. Now the ones that we are usually interested in are either the medieval ones, the ones in ancient Rome or ancient Greece. Now here's the thing, we reviewed quite a few of these, like remember the cheese for Emperor Augustus, but I also noticed that we have never checked this one out. Ancient Roman cheesecake. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it, but do remember to click the link in the description or pinned comment to go and check out his actual original video, as on this channel we avoid reacting to the entire thing, so I'll leave a chunk out for you to check out.
Cheesecake is one of those foods that no matter the style, it never disappoints. From the creamy New York-style cheesecake to the burnt Basque cheesecake to the soufflé-style cheesecake of Japan. But how do they compare to the original cheesecake, this 2,000-year-old ancient Roman cheesecake known as savillum? So think it.
You know what? This actually looks great. I'm not sure about the decoration on top, but we'll have to see. But this, oh, it's honey. Obviously, it's going to be honey based. It makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, cheese and honey. Yeah, honey's been a thing since who knows when, prehistory maybe? Even in ancient Egypt, we have found jars with honey, and it preserves for thousands of years if it's well stored. So yeah.
So thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, as we have dessert in ancient Rome. This time on Tasting History.
Thank you, HelloFresh. Appreciate that.
Today's recipe comes from De Agricultura, or On the Subject of Agriculture by Marcus Porcius Cato, better known as Cato the Elder. Cato, or Cato, however you want to say it, was a serious man to say the least. He was not the kind of guy who you would expect to ever even see smile, let alone indulging in cake. And yet, in his work on how to run a successful farm, he has an entire section completely dedicated to different cakes.
Oh, you know, that might have to do with the morale of the people that have to do the work.
He even has 3 recipes for cheesecake, and I liken these recipes to the 3 bears. There's one that's a bit too simple, one that is way too complex, and then one that is just right. The very simple one, known as libum, was basically just cheese and flour molded into a cake. It is a cake in the same way that, like, a urinal cake is a cake.
Oh, no.
It's the shape of a cake, and that's about it. It's not sweet, so it's not a dessert. The really complex one has the horrible name placenta, spelled like placenta, and that's actually where many years later we would get the word placenta. And I have made it here on the channel. It's very good, has lots of layers in it. It's just a lot of work for what is essentially cheese and honey. But the third recipe, known as savillum or savillum, depending on how you want to pronounce your Latin, is, to me, just right.
Yeah, the second one is correct with the long A, savillum, when it comes to phonemic vowel length. Good job, Mac.
Make the savillum this way. Take a ½ pound of flour and 2½ pounds of cheese and mix together as for the libum. Add a ¼ pound of honey and 1 egg. Grease an earthenware dish with oil. When you have mixed the ingredients well, pour into the dish and cover it with an earthenware lid. See that you cook it well in the middle where it is thickest. When it is cooked, remove the dish. Coat with honey, sprinkle with poppy seeds, and put it back beneath the lid for a short while, then remove it from the fire.
Yeah, the poppy seeds. Maybe that's the only thing I would personally avoid, but then again, maybe they liked it for texture, apart from the decoration side of it. Maybe he'll tell us. Isn't it fascinating that we read something like this? And of course, Cato, I've read it multiple times, mentioned it on the channel several times. We have read this specific book in some sections. However, isn't it fascinating that we can literally correlate the idea of, yeah, take a container, put oil, cover it, grease it in oil and all nicely all around, and then put your thing so that it's like this is, and then put it in the oven. This is stuff that we've been doing for thousands of years. It really is a tether with the past, isn't it, when we still do things the same, almost the same way.
Serve it in the dish with a spoon. Now, when modernizing this recipe, the first question that we have to ask is, how much does a pound weigh? Or rather, how much did a pound weigh in Cato the Elder's time?
Roman pound.
Well, in 268 BC, the libra, which is where we get the abbreviation LB for pound, was standardized, and today it would weigh 0.72 pounds or 329 grams. So instead of a ½ pound of flour and 2½ pounds of cheese, what you will actually need is 1¼ cup or 165 grams of whole wheat or barley flour, 3⅓ cup or 820 grams of cheese, and he's not specific in what kind of cheese you should use, so pretty much anything will work. I'm using ricotta because it's nice and mild, and it's pretty soft, though actually he probably would have been using a hard cheese, but you don't want a super salted cheese because that's going to just throw off the flavor. No. Then 1 egg, a quarter cup or 80 grams of honey, plus some additional honey for drizzling over the cake, and some poppy seeds.
I love that he chose ricotta because it's still a traditionally used cheese in, for instance, Sicily, where I'm from. In fact, if you've ever had a cannolo, and I know that you guys know the word cannoli, but that's plural. So if you have 2, I guess, then yes. But if you only have 1, it's un cannolo, 2 cannoli. Anyways, that's not a traditional Italian dessert. It's a traditional Sicilian dessert. Given you can find it everywhere in Italy, this is how popular it has become. But I would like to say the best ones are 100% down in Sicily because we know how to make them properly and other regions don't. With that being said, ricotta is a fundamental ingredient in Sicilian cooking, particularly when it comes to desserts. And we put it on all sorts of other things. There is a cake that I wonder if Max Miller has ever had a chance to actually make. I kind of want to show you. It's called cassata or cassata siciliana, if you want to be specific. And as you see, the inside is ricotta cheese. And then the outside, it depends because there is the oven-baked version. There is another version that is not oven-baked. There are a few versions, but this is really good. And when you see the green, that's some kind of sugar coating or frosting. It's a frosting. So it's not like pistachio. I know pistachio is very famously used in Sicilian cuisine, but this is not one of those cases. So yeah, a ricotta cake specifically is a thing in Sicily, and Sicily as an island tends to be somewhat linguistically and sometimes traditionally more conservative than the mainland. Who knows if there is any connection to this?
Cheesecake is one of those foods that no matter the style, it never disappoints. From the creamy New York-style cheesecake to the burnt Basque cheesecake to the common poppy seed at the time used in desserts, at least according to Pliny the Elder, was the white poppy, which when parched and mixed with honey used to be served up in the second course at the tables of the ancients. But he also talks about black poppy seeds, so I'm going to use a mixture of both. Though if you are using white poppy seeds, which I actually have never used until this recipe, it is best to toast them in a pan for about 10 to 15 seconds. So with just a handful of ingredients, our ancient Roman cheesecake shouldn't take very long to make, just like the recipes that you'll make from today's sponsor, HelloFresh.
All right, lovely. So now here's the sponsor section. I would like to recommend, by the way, HelloFresh. So, of course, this is a video from 2 years ago, but I don't imagine the code works for this link, but he still is often sponsored by HelloFresh. Occasionally I am too. I really love HelloFresh. Do consider that.
Very, very simple. All you have to do is mix your cheese with your flour until everything is well combined. Then beat the egg and add it to the cheese mixture and stir. Finally, mix in the quarter cup of honey. Now, honey was the major sweetener for all of the people living in the ancient Mediterranean. Basically, honey, grape must, dates, figs, and fresh fruit were how they got all of their desserts sweet. They did know about sugarcane. It was being grown in India and as far west as Arabia in that period, but they only used it for medicine, and even then it was very sparingly.
Sprinkling.
Now, once your honey is fully incorporated, coat a dish with a little olive oil and then pour the batter in. Now, the size of the dish is really up to you. About 9 inches in diameter will give you a thin cheesecake, but you can use a smaller dish for a deep cheesecake. Right. Now, in the original recipe, it says to cover it, and that's referring to something called a pestum, which is essentially an ancient Roman clay Dutch oven. They would put it over a fire and then have a top on it, and they would put hot coals on top of that. But I don't have one of those, and I'm guessing you don't either, so you can use any kind of dish that has a lid. I'm going to use a tagine, but you could also just use a casserole dish. Frankly, if you made it without a cover at all, it would still probably work because you're putting it into an oven, so yeah, that works as well. Either way, put the entire thing in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 Celsius, and bake for 45 minutes to an hour. The length that it needs to bake is really going to depend on how deep you made your cheesecake. You want it to be done enough that when you put a toothpick into the center, it comes out fairly clean. Okay. At that point, you can immediately drizzle honey all over the top. Now,
that's a lot of honey, both inside and on the top.
Now, the amount is really up to you, how sweet you want your cake. I went with just enough to coat the top, but if you want a pool of honey, by all means, pool the honey. Then sprinkle the top with white and or black poppy seeds, and cover the dish again, then set it back in the oven for about 10 minutes, then take it out and set it on a wire rack to cool completely. Now, like I said, this is just one of the 3 cheesecakes that Cato talks about.
I mean, I can imagine that, like, you have to picture this in ancient Rome, because of course we look at this and then it does look great. To me, it looks great. But we have so much choice when it comes to what you prefer for your desserts. Then, of course, I'm like, this could be fun once in a while, but then I'll probably like revert back to a proper gelato or all other different types of, modern cheesecake and whatnot. Like New York cheesecake, I like that a lot. But then again, how many options did they have? If you really think about it, it's either you eat this or you eat strawberries from the wild, which are great. But I can imagine, like, even the kids, ancient Roman children being really excited about this. Like, I see it in my mind, and this is, to me, the best way to approach historical recipes. Just forget the options you have today and try to think, might require a little research, but try to think, what options did they have? And then you'll see that what you're actually being offered is actually a really good, exciting meal or treat. Like in this case, this is 100% a treat. And probably not relegated to upper class, because, cheese and flour are available to all classes unless you are actually really poor. But even the farming class, huge sector in ancient Rome and in general, the public, they would have access to this. So it would be interesting if there is any way for us to know how common of a recipe this would be within the populace, particularly I imagine in the Italian peninsula. It looks very Mediterranean, so probably not something you would eat in the Germanic land, even under Roman control, because we do know historically that regions retained their culinary traditions. And this happens even in Italy. There is a mention of Julius Caesar or Julius Caesar traveling into the northern region, basically pretty much where Milan is today, and so Mediolanum. And then at one point, a Roman citizen who was Celtic in origin, because do remember that the northwest of Italy was Celtic and it had Celtic customs, offered Caesar artichokes with butter. And butter for the Mediterraneans was a cosmetic, so they all frowned upon it. They're like, "Ooh, that's nasty. What are you giving us?" And this kind of suggests that even though this was a Roman citizen and it was inside a Roman city, within the territories of Rome, still the Celtic culinary traditions and customs must have remained intact up to a certain extent. And so I thought that was fascinating.
Very simple libum. This is just one of the 3 cheesecakes that Cato talks about. The very simple libum, which was basically just cheese and flour, that one was mostly used in religious ceremonies. It could be offered up to the gods, and it would be eaten afterward. Placenta was also probably used in religious ceremonies, but it definitely was served on tables at grand feasts. We can see it in different menus from the period. But this savilum is a little bit different, because those 2 cakes could be served like you take the whole cake out and you give them the cake. But this one is meant to be served in the dish that it is cooked in. So unless you're asking the priest to give the cake dish back, which I guess you could, I'm curious, was it only used as a dessert, part of the secunda mensa, or the final part of an ancient Roman meal?
That would be my guess, to be honest, knowing Mediterranean customs of the period and modern time. Not that they are the same, but there are some similarities and links. That would be my guess too. I think it's a good guess. Okay, so the history section is the part where I imagine he puts a lot of work into the research, and this is where I usually skip because I want people to actually watch it in the original video. So let's have a look at the actual cake and let's see how it turned out.
Can you imagine? So in that case, when you arrive at the meal, instead of getting eggs, you are given a slice of savilum, like the one that I'm about to eat. And here we are.
Wow.
Cato the Elder's recipe for savilum.
Yeah.
Now he does say that it should be served in the dish that it's baked, but I think I put it a little slice just so it's better to see.
Yeah.
He does say to eat it with a spoon, so that I will do.
I like the wooden dish. It looks nice. Yeah.
Dense.
Really.
But flavorful. Sweet. It's actually quite good, but it is definitely the densest cheesecake I've ever come across. A couple bites and you're kind of done. But the flavor is wonderful. It's not as sweet, obviously, as a modern cheesecake.
Yeah. No sugar.
But it is sweet. And if you added
no added sugar.
more honey, It would be sweeter, but it is that honey sweetness rather than sugar, which is probably not what most people are used to today. But it's actually really smooth. While it's dense, it is nice and smooth. And I'm curious because kind of this crust got a little darkened. So I'm gonna just take a piece of that.
Let's go.
I wish the whole thing was that. It's not quite as dense. It's a little bit lighter in texture, but you still get the flavor. I think that the cheese that you choose really does matter. If you want to use something that has more flavor than ricotta, by all means, just know that that is going to be the predominant flavor. So would I choose this over a New York style cheesecake? No, I would not. But it is good. And it's really cool that even 2,000 years ago, this existed. You can see that it is the early form of cheesecake.
Absolutely.
It's like a direct line. One of my very first videos was on a medieval cheesecake. And you can kind of see how it tracks throughout time. It's really cool. It's one of those dishes that has been with us for a long time and hasn't changed all that much.
You know, the medieval cheesecake, if I have to, he showed a picture of it. Let me see.
You can see that it is the early form of cheesecake. It's like a direct line. One of my very first videos was...
Yeah, look at this. The way he used, I haven't watched this episode. It could be something we could check out if you wanted me to. I mean, I love cheesecake. Maybe next time I'll have a cheesecake here so we can make it more interactive. But yeah, the fact that I can see berries. What are these? I imagine blackberries and raspberries. Yeah, that's something we do. Absolutely. So it seems like the Romans didn't, as far as we know, at least when it comes to the literature. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess he would have mentioned it. And but it seems like medieval people did, because he's very precise. He's very accurate, Max. So if he's putting this, it's either because this is specifically mentioned on a recipe, or because something similar is mentioned on a recipe. Now, given these were obviously available to all sorts of wild berries would have been available to people the way, who knows when. So at the end of the Bronze Age, Stone Age again, as I say, this is something that the varieties change, and then there's the regional variety. So I wonder what this medieval cake, I'll have to watch this episode because I'm intrigued. This is something we do. And so that could be interesting if we could trace this line. So original plain cheesecake or cheesecake with honey, so some kind of liquid dressing on top, is definitely connected to the ancient Mediterranean in the classical period. But then when we move to a cheesecake that already is using fruit as its top decoration and flavor addition, then does that actually happen in the Middle Ages? Or, you know, that could be fascinating if that's the case, because as he says, it would be steps. It is linear, but with steps that could be correctly, easily identified.
On a medieval cheesecake. And you can kind of see how it tracks throughout time. It's really cool. It's one of those dishes that has been with us for a long time and hasn't changed all that much. So get some cheesecake, whether it's ancient or modern, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
Fantastic episode. Man, he has a lot of Patreons, and it's good, well deserved. Okay, thank you, Max. I really appreciate that. As I said, I skipped the history section because I know how much research he puts into that, and the way I know it is because, you know, all the resources, all the sources that he pulls, and then the reading and the translations and all of that. So yeah, he puts a lot of work in it, so usually I skip it. That's the one thing I do with Max Miller. It's kind of dependent. It's channel by channel. If it's a channel like, I mean, he does get excellent views, but, you know, sometimes you have channels like Oversimplified, and I used to not react to the entire thing, but then you guys kept telling me, no, come on, there is so much history that we want you to review, since that is specifically about the historical description of weapons, armor, battles, and whatnot. And then the videos get like 50 million views, and or 30 million views. So it's the different layer. And then I know he is fine because he often leaves a comment. So I know Max has no problem with me occasionally reacting to his videos. And then when it comes to Oversimplified, they also gave me the green light, and they said, no, totally, yeah, we have no problems with you whatsoever. Do react to our videos. So I do a situation that is like case by case. In this case, I do, even though he is exceptionally successful, I think most of his videos hit the million. Still, it's not like a 35 million subscribers, and considering I do enjoy not watching the whole thing, but still, fantastic work. Thank you, Max, and do remember, guys, to go and check him out and subscribe if you haven't. Bye. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much.